My strategy here, which has been actually quite effective, is before you try and understand fundamentally what's happening and like why the bug is caused, forget about all that complexity, forget about all that. Literally, the first thing I do when I get a bug is when did the bug start happening? And if the bug just started happening like in the last day or two, that's amazing. What I'll do then is I'll just do a blame, like a commit history of the whole module, the whole repository that my team is responsible for, and just try and look at the commit message and see if it lines up with the bug that I've gotten. And then if it does, then just revert that single code change, that single diff, and see if it fixes it. And then obviously that's like the quickest way. I can easily say, hey, the bug is fixed. I reverted that change. And then once the urgency is over, then you can kind of read through that code change and say, understand what happened, and try and make the proper fix for it, or alert the person who made that change about what happened. The same thing applies if you need to go a little bit deeper. So what typically will happen is a bug report will have some error message, or there'll be like a UI thing that'll pop up. So use that as a hint of where this might be happening, and then grep for the error message or the string that pops up to try and find where that might be happening. And then, kind of backtrack from where the error is being presented in the code or in the UI, and then backtrack to like, where is that actually where is that being bubbled up? And even here, before you go too deep into like actually understanding, which might take a long time, just see the blame of that file and see if there's a particular change that lines up with when this bug started happening. That explains it. So for example, if you're on the back end and you have like continuous deployment, it should be pretty obvious. Okay, this commit landed at, 2:04 p.m. and the bug started getting reported like an hour later if it's a manual person, or maybe it'll start happening immediately if it's like a continuous integration system. On mobile, it's a little bit more challenging, but then I'd really recommend that you try and figure out a really good internal system. When does Capital One actually deploy these new mobile apps? So, hey, here's a bug. This commit landed, and then that would have, as per like whatever tool you have internally, that would have emerged in production at this date. And that therefore it lines up with this bug report, and I can pinpoint it exactly. And as you can have that narrative, you can quickly use the tooling within the company to find that. You're actually going to be way more productive without even having any knowledge of the actual code or logic. So that's like a big life hack that I think I've been able to use pretty effectively at Meta. Just don't bog yourself down with all of the like complexity. Just look at the history, look at the blame, and see if that explains that. And the other thing to keep in mind here is that there's a difference between the desired behavior, like questions about the desired behavior or functionality, versus an actual bug. And I think especially at a large company like Capital One, where there's a lot of moving pieces, a lot of maybe lack of clarity around what is the exact definition of the product, it's not obvious always what is a bug, right? And so I think if you're spending a lot of time just trying to understand the bug report, like, okay, what are they reporting? Why is it an issue? What should actually be happening? That's something that you really shouldn't spend that much time on. What I would do is aggressively push back if it's a QA person who has enough context. Like tell them, hey, I want you to follow this template maybe, make it very clear what is the current behavior, desired behavior, regression date, and any other context, but like maybe are they in some experiment or something that they could provide. You probably don't have that level of quality bug reporting if it's from an end user, right? They're not going to be able to share all that with you. But a QA team, I think that is a good expectation. And then what you do is be really clear, hey, on the engineering side, here is what I'm observing, and put that in the report, but then punt it over to like a product manager or someone who has more context. And it's totally fine for you to have an opinion and share that too, but just be very clear that, hey, this is the change we're making, just so that it doesn't kind of get in this like ping pong state of, okay, I fixed it, but actually turns out that was not the right fix. And now there's a debate about what should actually be happening. So just keep those things in mind as you're diagnosing an issue. So number one, I think the first piece of advice, just to summarize, don't actually fix anything, or don't understand anything. First thing you should do is look at the history. Figure out if there's a recent regression or change, and try and back out code change if you can. That's like the simplest fix. Second, if you do need to diagnose, like the way you typically will go about that is either just grepping for a particular string or error message that you have seen, or you have to use context about like how things fit together based on the bug report. And the third piece of advice I have is just be very clear about what is actually desired behavior versus what is a bug report.